residents have.
We're good. All right. Thank you, Cliff, for that last hour. It was really informative for me. I didn't know anything about the Lizzie Valley GD or a lot of the history. And in fact, we're going to talk about possibly having you speak to the agency. I've been thinking about having an all-hands meeting, and I think that a lot of that information will be really helpful for our staff to start to learn about the tribes from your perspective. So that's really what all this is about for me today, is strengthening a tribal communication with NDEP. So good morning. It's nice to be here for my second time as administrator. I've been administrator for about 1.5 years now, and if you were here or virtually with us last year, I guess we do have some folks on with us virtually this year again. Last year I gave a bit of an overview of the agency and our structure and our roles and responsibilities, just to sort of lay a new groundwork with my administration of NDEP, and just some common understanding of what we do and how we do it and why we do it. I'll have a couple of sort of refreshers on that this morning. What's really my desire today is follows some of the work that we've done in 2024, where I actually have been able to spend time directly with 4 of our Nevada tribes on various things. And it's led to my desire to have a conversation this morning, and eventually, hopefully, a true conversation with you about communication strategies. But just briefly, for the division, our mission is to preserve and enhance the environment of the state in order to protect public health, sustain healthy ecosystems, and contribute to a vibrant economy. We have 11 bureaus covering air, water, and land programs. We have 3 boards and commissions: a petroleum fund reimbursement board, water finance board, and our state environmental commission. And I have up to 280 employees. Just generally, our organizational connection with the state. My director, James Sellmeyer, for the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, reports to the governor. And then I have a deputy director, his name is Chad Stevens, who I report to. And then Cliff is over there on our org chart as well, with in collaboration with me and the work that we do together to help work with tribes and whatnot. So from there, just a little bit deeper into our leadership team. I have 3 deputy administrators and all of our 11 bureaus. We do have all the contact information on our website, so I didn't clutter the slide with that. But I circled a couple of those boxes because some change has occurred in the last year. We have a new bureau chief for the Bureau of Sustainable Materials Management, and Annalyn Settlemeyer is now the lead for our solid waste, RCRA, hazardous waste, and recycling programs. So I'll talk a little bit more about recycling in just a second. And then we also have a new chief, Ashley Taylor, for our Bureau of Mine Regulation and Reclamation. This is like really new. She's been chief for like less than a month. But she does come from within NDEP. She's been most recently a permit writer in our air program, and so she's worked directly with a lot of the mines, as well as the Nevada Mining Association, and everyone involved in the air permitting process for all of industry, not just mines. But she also spent some time growing up in Elko, so she has a connection to the mining industry, and we're really excited to have her in a leadership position now for our mining program. So this is also a slide from last year. Just briefly, we are generally delegated federal programs from the US EPA, and some of them go back to like the 1970s. We've been around for a while. We're delegated programs such as the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, the Clean Air Act, the Brownfields Program. Our state revolving fund is funded by EPA's capitalization grants, which we have at least one state revolving fund infrastructure project that we did with the Falmouth tribe. And so we have a lot of programs as well as others, where we are working either under state regulations that are state-only programs like mining, or our federal adoption by reference of the federal programs through the CPA. Last year, we talked a little bit about the third bullet. That was kind of one of my main focuses last year, where we talked a bit about NDEP's role in land use decisions and permitting. And just as a quick reminder or summary of what I talked about last year, it's important, I think, in part keying off of what Cliff was talking about in the last hour, about the development of EISs and fast tracking some of them. NDEP does not generally get involved in the EIS process. We might provide data or information into that process with the federal partner that's leading that effort, usually like the BLM. But those land use decisions happen way before we ever get involved with the permitting. So we can talk more about that either in the Q&A or at another time. But I just wanted to make sure that that folks continue to understand, and I say this a lot to a lot of different parties. Usually we are coming towards the end of things on a project. We're not deciding or having an opinion on what is the right project for that piece of land, whether it's private land or federal land. We're just making sure that under state and federal law that it's done in a way that protects human health and the environment. So that's not something that everybody consciously realizes. So let's see, I'm going to talk just briefly about some of our funding opportunities in just a second. And then what I really want to focus on today is what I said earlier, communication strategies with the tribes in our intersection with the tribes. And particularly how decisions that we make have the potential to affect tribes, and then how we engage in those discussions. But first, some funding notes. NDEP is really excited to announce that we have, actually just a couple days ago, I signed a recycling grant with the Walker River Paiute Tribe. And I understand this is the first state grant that we put together with the tribe. And so it's super exciting for me to have them launch a recycling program at that location, and they're specifically seeking to involve tribal youth in a new recycling program for sure, for the tribe for sure. So that community, I think, it'll be fun to see that grow and develop and come to pass. So this recycling grant is different from what's known as SWIFR, the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling grants. I have a little bit of information about that because I understand that tribes may be applying for SWIFR grants now. It's off cycle with our SWIFR grants with federal funding, but the projects that we're doing, I think, have the potential to involve tribes. We're doing certain studies and surveys and whatnot with our SWIFR funds, and so if you're interested in the recycling program or the SWIFR grants, you can connect with me or Cliff, and I'll make sure Cliff has all of the information about what we are doing with our SWIFR funding and how we would benefit from input from the tribes through the various projects that we're doing. I absolutely want to make sure that y'all are aware of the open grant process right now, which is the 319 non-common-source planning grant program. We have $500,000 for 5 to 10 awards with no match requirement, so that tribes can update or create watershed-based plans or 319 plans for the tribes. They don't have to be terribly elaborate; they could just be a few pages. But they are due in a few weeks. So if you're interested in our 319 watershed planning program, please make sure that you're in touch with the agency, especially if you have any questions before that application deadline is due.
Oh, Jennifer.
Yes.
Hi.
So this was brought up in the environmental managers meeting that I attended last, and I still had the question for follow-up on what the administrative burden is going to be like, because with the state grants we have with the Urban Community Tribe, there is a lot of administrative burden, and I don't know not at all. Our home visitation program is a beast to deal with the everything, and all our financials get sent back. They want where everything to our bank account. They want our bank statements every single month, and they want to see where every expenditure lines up, and they are constantly kicking back our reports for a couple of cents or something like that. And I don't want to go through that with more state, and I have brought that up at the environmental managers as well.
Well, yeah, thank you for that feedback. We do try to be fairly user-friendly, but yeah, when accountants get involved, things just go haywire. And I have to sometimes amend documents for a couple of cents because they literally make us want, have to count everything to the penny. And it is intensely frustrating. I totally hear you on that.
And this is every month, and it's taking, a week at least of my director's time doing that, as well as, as well as, at least a day of my own time, if not 2 days of our finance director's time to sit down and do all this work. So where I'm really appreciative that these are coming out with NDEP, I don't want to do the back of administrative work. If it's looking like what our other state programs do.
So yeah, thank you for bringing that up at the environmental managers meeting recently, and I will, now that I've heard it myself, I will also circle back with staff, and I may want to hear about the administrative burden potentially related to those grants, and I'll see what we can do about that, and hopefully provide you some additional feedback about what our processes entail for the application.
Great, because it's a consideration. I would put in work, but I have to do the work on that, and I know 49 other grants. And like Cliff talked about earlier, building the capacity of the tribes is something that we don't want to be in the way of. Right? We want to be able to have these funds go to good projects that actually build you up and not cause you stress and angst and tear you down. So.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Katie. It is something that's touched upon, more NDEM related regarding funding, but a lot of tribes, as I said in my presentation, are grant driven, and out of that they get indirect to pay for costs of their finance staff, administration to administer the grants. But state grants often have like a cap of like 5% or 10% of the administrative fees, which is kind of like indirect. And tribes are like, we're not getting the right administrative fee for how much we're doing, and so they're reluctant to apply for them. And it's like 100% how I bring up state grants. That's always brought up. We don't like the work that's required for them. It's not so much. It is a burden, but it's like we're not getting the money that's being paid for administrative staff to do this because it's not indirect, and we're getting like NDM was getting like 5% of the time, and it just wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah, so we should absolutely also talk about maybe not just working it into an indirect, but actually putting hours and dollars in for administrative support so that you can actually bill for that in particular, not just pull it out of an indirect cost.
So maybe more similar to our interlocal agreement in a way with an hourly breakdown and then a rate charge.
Yes, and for those online, I was talking, the question was about working in hours, the way we have done for some of our interlocal agreements with the tribes, where they actually have an hourly rate for technical staff or administrative staff.
Yeah, most tribes don't follow Bacon Francis, they have their own scale.
All right. One of the things I actually wanted to make sure I mentioned when I was thinking about this particular grant, because the theme of communicating strategies and communicating between the tribes, I actually also view this as a real opportunity for us to learn from tribes about strategies that we can use, learn from the tribes and potentially use statewide in the non-point source traffic management. The theme of the conference is respect the TEK. And I think through these grants, we could actually really benefit across the board with strategies that you may already be using for your non-point source water quality intentions. One of the things I also wanted to mention was how much I've learned along those lines from the Washoe tribe, the work that they're doing to restore mixed meadows. It's an absolutely fantastic project if you have it. ever heard of it, look it up, it's great. Meeks Bay and Meeks Meadows is up in Lake Tahoe, and it's an incredible project to restore that meadow, but I don't have time to talk about that. All right, so moving into the strengthening of NDP and tribal communication. So there's a lot of us potentially involved in ensuring that we're communicating well. I can't stress enough that under my administration, for sure, absolutely, unequivocally, we recognize and honor tribal sovereignty. I recognize and honor tribal sovereignty. And we really strive to build really good relationships based on that respect. I'm going to be completely honest. It's funny when Cliff talked about the term nomadic being fairly offensive. I get a little nervous when I'm doing presentations like this because I really never intend to be offensive. And I hope I'm not, or I never am. But I would hope that if I say something accidentally in a tribal presentation or in any meeting that we have or anything along those lines, if I say something stupid, that you help me understand and help me learn and educate me on things from your perspective, and please forgive me in advance, but I'm going to do my best. So, there are many parties out there, like I said. I've highlighted the two in green because at the end of the day, it's really about NDP and the tribal governments in this particular scenario that we're talking about today. But we have, US EPAs in there with their roles and responsibilities. Cliff's in there as my tribal liaison. We've got the Intertribal Council, other organizations like the Nevada Urban Indians, and what used to be known as the Nevada Indian Commission, which is now the Nevada Department of Native American Affairs. They were renamed in the last legislative session, I understand. Cliff mentioned that we've had our tribal liaison position since 2004. I remember when it was formed. It's amazing that it's been 20 years now. So we do have a history of trying to work together, and the tribal liaison position certainly helped with that. Some of our history is good, some of our history has been difficult. But I see both of those opportunities as both of those situations, the difficult times and the good times, as opportunities to learn what works and when we mess up. And then adjust as appropriate. Over the past year, I have worked to truly be present with the tribal leaders, especially when I've been asked to visit. I absolutely honor that to the best of my ability. NDP is local, we're nearby, and I like to try to be out to build and reinforce the relationships that have been growing between myself and tribe. I've been with NDP for 28 years, so I've been working on projects that have involved various tribes throughout my career, and it's nice to be in a position now to provide some leadership to my staff in state and tribal relationships. So, I see going out to the tribes as being a way for me to really see and feel the impact of our what we're doing in regulating the environment for the state of Nevada, and being able to convey one-on-one, eye-to-eye, what we're doing and why we're doing it, and learn. Again, the theme of the conference, respecting TDK, I don't see any other better way to understand and honor TDK than to be here. So, like I said, we're nearby. We do our best to be present and learn from the tribes to the best of our ability. So there's that decade-long history. And actually, I have a show and tell here today. Cliff and I meet monthly, roughly monthly, at least monthly, have other conversations here and there, sometimes more. As projects are going on or staff have questions that Cliff helps with. So I always feel like I have a lot to learn. I'm always seeking to understand how best to engage with tribal members and tribal leadership. And so we actually, as part of our history for the last 20 years, pretty much on top, all of our, this is from my office, our deputy administrators and all of our bureau chiefs have Nevada Tribal Government Consultation Protocols binder. And this was one of the initial projects of the original tribal liaison, and they've been continuing to grow and be maintained over the years. Now I recognize, so this binder of consultation protocols has a tab for each tribe. There's not a consultation protocol for each tribe. Some of them haven't been developed yet. And I also recognize that some of them have been around a while, and some of them are a little bit old. They may or may not be out of date, but I also recognize that tribal governments, change over time. And what may have been established with a prior tribal administration, tribal government, may or may not hold today. But at least I see it as a starting point to help me understand at some point in our relationship with that particular tribe, this is the way that the tribe sought for us to communicate with them. So we still value these, we look at them when we want to engage on a new project or communication with the tribe, and we do value them very much. Let's see. So at one of our monthly meetings recently, when I was preparing for the conference, I think we have questions.
I was just going to offer some input from DEP's perspective on protocol. There's a state historic preservation office, and they worked out a system with the tribes, and they list the protocol with each tribe, how they want to be communicated. And it is very cumbersome. We have an admin that's an expert with it. But we need to send out communication by email, hard copies, no attachments, with attachments to this other person, very specific for all 22. And that's who manages that for the state of Arizona, the State Historic Preservation Office. And then they keep that updated. The tribes have access to that particular website, and it's very hard.
So yeah, Cliff wanted to respond, but then also we're getting a little bit deeper into that. Just a second. Go ahead.
I'll be quick. Well, yeah, I'll be quick. Cliff Wilson, State Liaison. Yeah, Tansy Smith, when she was in the position, this came up, and with SHPO, and SHPO's under the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. It's a division underneath it, as is NDEP, a division under DCNR, and it was more restrictive. Sort of like the Head Start program and the regular education program, it's all restricted. And so that's why they decided to have these separate protocols, kind of, because they aren't as restrictive. But they were the protocols were developed under projects type. Like, how do we do, when we're communicating is regarding a cleanup or a specific type of event. And so that's why they set up the protocols that way rather than an overarching consultation policy. And thanks for reminding me about that. I forgot about that. And so that's why they set it up. But yeah, we're the SHPO restrictions.
So for those that don't know, the gentleman who was speaking a second ago, he's with Arizona, or if you're online, that's Arizona DEQ.
Yeah.
All right, so like I said, Cliff and I were talking about my preparation for the conference, and we talked about ensuring, that the right messages are heard by the right people. And this phrase kind of got coined: the right people at the right level at the right time. And it's simple for me to remember when I'm in my busy life. I think part of honoring sovereignty is ensuring that the right people with the right level of responsibility or the right voice for the tribe are in the discussion. And it doesn't mean it always has to be the tribal leader or the tribal official, or it doesn't necessarily have to be me, although it often might, especially new projects or things that are a really big deal. But it can also include designees. And what we want to make sure we do is when we involve designees, that when we make those assignments, we're clear between the NDEP and the tribe as to who our designee is, to speak for either one of us, so that we can be efficient in our work moving forward together. That is also I think foundational to, what's the former Nevada Indian Commission was required to develop in accordance with a prior law that was passed in Nevada, which is a policy to promote collaboration between state agencies and Indian tribes, which is the NDEP policy, as some of us refer to it because the Nevada Indian Commission just changed its name. But this policy to promote collaboration between state agencies and Indian tribes is always right next to my desk. And I've got it highlighted, and I refer to it. Its purpose is to increase collaboration between federally recognized tribal entities located within Nevada state agencies that are often charged with developing wide-ranging policies, agreements, and procedures. I do understand, actually, having spoken with one of our Nevada tribal leaders recently, that not all of them have read the policy, and/or there may be varying levels of agreement with the policy. I recognize that tension, but I realize that it is very much still a good document that again helps form the basis for us to start conversations. I will do my best to follow the letter of it because it's a law and a policy first on a law. And it does present some challenges, but certainly following the spirit and the intent of it. There's a lot of value in that, even the intent of the policy, even if we don't quite make the letter of its implementation every single day. And it does help guide NDEP's actions. The NDEP policy does recognize the ability for us to have our own established policies to achieve the same objective. So I see the binder that we have as providing additional detail that is tribe specific for what this policy is intended to do. So collaboration. I think it's kind of an overused where did my presentation go? I'll keep going. But in the policy, it does say that collaboration is an informal process to achieve its common set of goals. Timely communication, joint effort, mutually beneficial relationships, all that's really good stuff. And I've cited the section on the policy where it comes from. But it's important for us to learn, as I have from Cliff, that collaboration does not include meeting with individuals or groups of individuals that are not authorized to represent the state agencies or tribes. And one of the things that I learned from Cliff is that for things like public meetings or hearings or workshops, when we send out a notice of public hearing or a general notice about a workshop or something that's going on, it's important for us and my staff to understand that the tribe may or may not show up to these events that are public meetings because it's not honoring the sovereignty of the tribe. And so it's important for us to recognize that we need to reach out in a different way to ensure that tribes that are interested in meeting with us have the right forum to do so that we can have that government-to-government relationship on a project or a regulation change or something along those lines. And not just assume, as I've heard my staff say, well, we invited the tribes that didn't show up, so they must not care. That is so not true. And so we want to make sure that I instill that in my tribe, in my staff, in their interactions with the tribes, that we're making sure that the right people at the right level are meeting with us at the right time. So it's a new phrase that I'm going to start using with staff as well, because to me it's a little catchy. It's easy to remember. So I just have a couple more slides. We've got plenty of time. So there are tons of details in the policy and the guidance and the rules that it's like, I don't know, like 15 or 20 pages. It's really long. We try to get it right. We are a work in progress. It does help clarify for the staff that are reading it, because I can't tell every single one of my staff, how to do this, so sometimes they have to go and read things for themselves. So that section that I cited there at the top is an important one for us to understand that it really is consulting on a government-to-government basis, where there is a state agency action with tribal implications. And that is capitalized because it's actually a defined term. It's really broad, and it's cited there in the policy, but we're continuing to seek to understand what it means to be making a decision that has, or an action that has tribal implications. So I have a couple of examples that have come up recently in my work over the past year. I did recently send my first letters under the policy to a couple of tribes where we are working on a pending permit decision in our mining program, and that I felt under this policy had the potential to have tribal implications. It wasn't a secret, they already knew about it, but I wanted to make sure that I issued the letter to the tribal leadership to formally initiate and open up the opportunity for government to government discussion about the project, and not just have it be at the staff level. And the second example, I've heard through the grapevine that some tribes in Nevada are interested in hearing more about and receiving direct outreach on our regulation revisions. Again, we send out our reg revision notifications to common listservs that the tribes are on, but that's still not the same as ensuring that we're having government-to-government discussions about the impact of a potential change in regulation. So I'm working on sort of maybe like a blanket letter that I can send out when we're embarking on regulation revisions to all the Nevada tribes, because usually our regulations are applied statewide, to make sure that that folks that are interested have the opportunity to connect with me and my staff.
Jennifer, I'd like to, where's the mic? Oh. Well, it's fresh in my head because I might forget it. So the ITCM convention is scheduled for, I think, June 25. That sounds like a perfect time to get all the leaders there and bring that up. So don't let me forget that. That'd be the perfect venue to have that conversation.
Awesome. Great, well, thank you very much. So, so that brings us to what I was hoping to do with the last, 15 minutes or so of our time together. So I'm really interested, sort of what resonates with you. Do you like it? Do you like the right people at the right level at the right time? Does that resonate with you? Within things, if you're familiar with the policy to promote collaboration between state agencies and any tribes, we're going to formally for policy.
Who's read it?
Yeah, has anybody read it? But not just those two things, but what I really am hoping to have a bit of open communication about what some of these concepts mean to you, so that I can continue to learn about what your expectations are. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Nevada tribes. If other Arizona and California tribes are in the room, I'm happy to learn from other people's experiences with their state and communication with their state. So, I'm wondering what do you value in state and tribal communication? And what would you like me to know about effective communication with your tribe or tribes in general? Pause and see if these hands pop up.
So I'd like to say thank you, Jennifer, for working with us throughout all of these years with the Arrington County Tribes. It's great when we have the same people and we get, understandings, and we can work and progress to get more and more done. But I think in your discussion here, I think the right time is quite critical in working with us at the tribes, because something that we've brought up before in many of the meetings that we've had is we don't always have the staff or the capacity to address or answer things right away, even if they are extremely important. Sometimes there's only, maybe one person that's manning a lot of things for the tribe, and that's true of all of our tribes. And a lot of times it may even be our environmental people, and they get pulled for other things because we get, really good training through EPA. We come up with, good skill set, and I feel like, with that, we're able to help out in our tribes a lot more. So, right timing is a thing, and then also giving us adequate time. So I know that something we at the Arlington Paiute Tribe had asked is like a 45-day notice that we're expected to try to respond to something. So we have some more time to try to schedule that or find somebody that can assist us, especially if there's, something more technical that may not be within my realm of things or chairman's realm of things or, anybody else around. So, and I think just the recognition that some of us are so small that there's only, a handful of people that are manning all of our processes, and that the environmental part of it is only one part of our processes that we do.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah, so I'm certainly hearing the earlier the better and as long as possible.
Yes.
And I do recognize that, we're just an environmental department, and that is just one small piece of what the tribes and the tribal government are handling. You're handling, law enforcement and social programs and environments and your own,
Emergency services.
emergencies, yeah, all kinds of things. And so, yeah, I appreciate that feedback. Sooner the better and as long as possible.
Yes. And that's what I would.
Thank you. Others? All right, excellent.
I think another way would be to bring in working with all of the state people at once that affect the working with tribes, and to do invitation only with the key people, like within the region, within that department or whatever that area. But if you could just be more, we could just get together more like that instead of you trying to do it all for everybody. Or there would be all the departments so that we can all hear it and we can try to all link this all together.
Yeah, I like that idea of efficiency. That if we're all there together, then we're all hearing it together, and so we're hearing it firsthand. And then we're not, as a state agency or several state agencies, impacting the tribes by having one meeting this week and another meeting the next week and another meeting the week after that, and honoring your time and resources to try to cover. It might be a little bit longer meeting, but we could cover more in a more concise format. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah, thank you. I'm also open to hearing what hasn't worked, because I tell my staff all the time, if I don't know what's broken, I can't fix it. So sometimes those conversations are hard, but I've got really big shoulders.
Yeah, the feedback I get sometimes is kind of repetitive. So the 30-day notice, a lot of tribes don't have specialists, technicians on staff. They have to contract it out, and then a procurement policy. And so when it's like a 30-day to respond, I think what just came up, which was the wastewater permit, and the period to respond to a wastewater permit. Sometimes like, oh, I didn't know you could respond on that. And but they have a procurement policy because they don't have staff at hand to do that, so they have to put out the bid. And by the time they don't even start because they know the process is going to take too long, because they have to have an official council meeting to approve that type of thing. And maybe they only meet once a month, and it won't work, so they don't even do it. And I think that'd be a good solution, kind of like sending out your staff and seeing what the needs are and maybe working around that, especially for the comments. And then the other thing I hear is, so a federal agency, you can make comments on whatever it is, and it's on the record, the official record. How does the state do that, and how do they document? They ask me, how do they document that their comment was received and how they responded to it?
Yeah, thank you, Cliff. Those are good points as well. And it's a good reminder that, as well as what, Jenny said, the earlier the better, I think is important too, because if the tribe needs more time and they ask for more time, that's great. And 9 times out of 10, I'm sure we can accommodate additional requests for time. But the sooner the better, when we start that process earlier, if the tribe needs more time, then we don't feel crunched at the other end when it comes time for us to make the decision and to do whatever it is we're doing, issue permit or whatnot. And On the other comment that Cliff made, I have been myself in a situation where I've provided comment on something and been told, thank you very much for your comment, basically have a nice day. I don't feel respected in that regard. And I certainly try to instill myself to never do that with others. Your comments on the record, thank you very much. It's not satisfying to anybody. I mean, we really need to hear what is being said, not just see that something has been said. So,
I joke around that it's kind of a joke. I say, like, you know, when you go to things like that, you can make comments, and then that's it. You know, like the nice thing. I'm like, what? No cookies and donuts? At least feed me. You know, if you're gonna do that.
You know, along the lines of, again, the theme of the conference, you know, we've been working on this mining project in Yerington. I worked on it in the 90s as the early staffers, and we're still working on it. But a document that I saw recently, when we were working through some of we're working towards a record of decision on what to do with the cleanup and everything. And there's a 2012 report on cultural uses of plants and things in the area. And I read through that cover to cover, and it was fascinating. So I really learned a lot. And the more that we can truly learn from the tribes and tribal members and tribal leadership, I think I don't want to sound trite, but it's the better off we all can be, because unless we hear these things and really truly try to understand, then, you know, we're not making forward progress. So we still have a few more minutes.
The right people, right place, right time resonates with me. I really like. Our governor's office, tribal director recently provided some guidance on tribal consultation, which we're incorporating into our next policy update. And they're asking for 60-day advance notice for consultation. So that's the number that they put in there. So we're working within our divisions there on the list to ensure that when we do receive an application for a permit, it does have potential impact tribes, then we go ahead and send that out right away. So, and then the collaboration, I like incorporating that into policy. We've done the same. I think the public meetings, public hearings are no substitute for consultation, obviously. And we make that pretty clear. So if we do, instead of inviting you to the public hearing and public meeting, we have tribal listening sessions as a way to bring all the tribes together, hear it, and then if they want consultation, they'll request it from the
Oh, and that was State of Arizona, tribal liaison. And we have similar themes. Some of that is embedded in the policy for promote collaboration between states and tribes. NDEP policy. There are timelines in there. They may or may not be long enough. But one of the things you touched on was one of my learning points, you know, from Cliff that I mentioned in one of the earlier slides was, you know, if it's a public hearing on a permit, say an air permit or a mining permit, if a public hearing is requested and we're out there doing that public hearing, that's you know, likely an opportunity to have a separate hearing with the tribe for the public hearing. And so, you know, that's something that you know, before I became administrator, I wasn't really aware of. So this is a new thing for us that we're going to try to strive towards. When we've reached out, you know, when my office has reached out saying, you know, this permit has the potential to impact a tribe, we're having a public hearing, you know, would you like to engage in government-to-government communication? And if that answer is yes, then we'll arrange it. We'll arrange a separate meeting And frankly, I think I'd like to hear from the tribes before I hear from the public. So that's just my own personal sort of thinking on the chain of events for these things. And so I would strive to do that in that order. Could be the same day, might not be the same day, but we might want to make sure we have various entities in the room, potentially besides us, as was mentioned earlier. Yeah, I think that's the direction that I'm headed towards, to try to improve it as one of our strategies to improve communication. Just like the other thing I would mention is that I try really hard not to use the term collaboration, because that's what, or consultation, excuse me. Well, collaboration as well. I think I was like, no overuse the word. But consultation has a very specific meaning between the tribes and the US EPA. So I like to use words like communication and government to government engagement. Just
Yeah.
side note there.
It's different in Arizona.
Yeah, because I don't want, because our processes can be very different from the federal consultation processes for a project.
I just want to mention a real situation because we're talking about meeting with the tribes and everything. So during the Thacker Pass lithium mine, there were protests for the mine, and they didn't have a public meeting, and it got violent. And NDEP was concerned about the safety of their personnel, and so they did set up something with the tribe meeting that wasn't public. And that is something that we try to do because we got to take into account the safety of the personnel people. And also the other thing, I want to put the onus on tribes a lot of times with media, but just bringing their cultural specialists a lot of times, which is value. But we're the air quality specialists, we're the water quality specialists. And the tribes, unfortunately, are overwhelmed, and they bring their cultural specialists, think of 106 and NEPA stuff. But a lot of these things, the permitting are a state statute, language related to Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, stuff like that. And they're kind of want comments on that. And so I urge tribes, and again, this is what I talked about in the first my presentation, the low capacity and not having money in hand to pay for consultants. It's an issue. And so, but I think if we have meetings with tribes, maybe at the ITC convention, we can convey to them the importance to maybe have a plan to have people there to review these documents that we're looking at Clean Water Act and Air Act permitting issues regarding poisoning of people in the environment.
So we're just about out of time. Jenny?
I was just gonna ask if the state of Nevada had a conference or anything similar to like what we do here. Or like the ITC in past, because it would be great to invite the tribes to go, just on all levels.
We don't, and that's a great suggestion. The last thing I'll mention before I cede my time to Arizona for the next presentation, but is that I didn't specifically make this note, but I thought of it as we were talking. I also want to recognize that having separate meetings outside of public meetings with tribes is also super critical, because you may want to share stuff with us that you want us to keep confidential. And I realize that, and I recognize that as part of your tribal sovereignty, that you have information that you don't necessarily want the public to know. And we have ways of handling that as well. So I look forward to being able to do more of this in the coming year. I've got a few more years before I retire, so I hope to continue to instill this in my staff and these teams, and our folks going forward and building a new culture within the NDEP along all these lines. So thank you. Thanks for engaging with me in the discussion.
Yeah. That was great.
Alright, cool. I have to head to my presentation. So I think Bryce or